Hello, and welcome to the first webinar in our new Radiation Safety and Wellness webinar series on radon. Joining me from the Radiation Safety Institute of Canada is Maria Costa and our senior scientist, Dr. Rashid Zatouni, PhD. Rashid has over 30 years of experience in radiation protection, including being a radiation safety officer, a member of the Federal Provincial Territorial Radiation Protection Committee, and working at the BC CDC. Based on feedback from our previous series, we will be including guest experts whenever possible. Our first guest is Pam Workington from the Canadian Association of Radon Scientists and Technologists. Pam is the Executive Director of CARST and the CNRPP, which is the Canadian National Radon Proficiency Program. She has a Bachelor of Commerce and been working in the field since 2008. We thank Pam for taking the time to join us today. As a bonus, Kelly Bush, the Manager of Radon Outreach and Stakeholder Engagement from Health Canada, has graciously accepted to answer questions during the webinar. Thank you, Kelly, for agreeing to join us on such short notice. We also have a new guest for the wellness portion of the webinar. Teresa Meikle is the founder of Mindful Pathways and an instructor in the Mindfulness Meditation Certificate Program with the School of Continuing Studies at the University of Toronto. Beginning at 12:40, she will lead us in a 20-minute introduction to mindfulness with practical strategies to weave seamlessly into our day. Thank you, Teresa, for sharing your knowledge with us. So let's take a moment to go over the functionality of the Zoom meeting. We will ask that during the presentation portion that the audio and video be from the presenters only. We have found that although you can access the audio through the computer or telephone, the quality of sound tends to be better when listening from a computer. There's a chat feature where people can discuss. If you would like, take a moment now to say hello and where you're from. If you have questions arriving from the content, please type them into the chat. Previously, we were using the webinar feature and there was a Q&A, but now we're moving to the meeting feature so that we can have more interactivity with the people, the participants, hopefully. So we don't have the Q&A section. So please type in the chat when you have questions and we'll try to keep track of them and bring them up later. As the webinar is only 40 minutes in length and is immediately followed by the wellness session, time may not permit for us to answer them all during the webinar. The answers will be posted on our website, along with a link to the video recording and a copy of the slides. This can be found under Education Webinars. Also, I'll be sending a confirmation of attendance email after the webinar and will include a link to the page with that communication. I'll also include the topics covered and the length of time spent in the webinar, as some people have requested this to send to their professional association. Lastly, I have automatic closed captioning enabled in the slide presentation. If they're being blocked by your Zoom controls, you should be able to select a different way to view the webinar in Zoom, which makes them easier to see. So in this session, what we're going to do is have an overview of what radon is. Previously in the webinars, it was mainly me talking and going through information for those that have been part of our last webinar series. But this time we're going to change it. It's going to be a little bit different. I'm just giving the short overview of what it is, its properties, where it's found, how long it remains in buildings, and what happens when it's inhaled. And then we're going to have a conversation with our guests. And depending on the amount of time left at the end, we'll be taking questions and answers from the people here with us. Sorry, it didn't click. So what is radon? So with more people spending time at home due to the pandemic, we have chosen our first webinar on the series to be about radon gas. It's a cancer risk in our home that many don't know about. It's also the time of year best suited for testing. So those are two reasons that we picked radon as our first topic. So our first question that we're answering is what it is. And it's a naturally occurring radioactive gas generated by the decay of natural uranium, or U-238, in soils and rocks. And here the graphic shows the decay series for uranium, and you can see where radon-222 is, and then the daughters that come after that. Radon is generated by the decay of radium-226, which is itself a decay product of natural uranium. Radon is a noble gas, which means it is chemically inert. It doesn't react with other things. It's also colorless, odorless, tasteless, and it has no electrical charge. When it undergoes radioactive decay, it emits high energy alpha particles. It has a physical half-life of 3.8 days. Radon, in turn, decays into several alpha and beta emitters. The alpha emitters, such as polonium-210, polonium-214, and polonium-218, cause the most internal tissue damage. Part of the reason why it is that radon, while radon's chemically inert and it's gaseous, it's electrically neutral. The radon progeny, they're metals, they can be electrically charged, and they attach easily to dust and aerosols in the air. So you can breathe radon in and back out, but the radon daughters, they're metallic and charged and stick to the dust in the air. In terms of where we tend to find radon, well, it comes from the uranium in the soil, which is all over Earth, but it builds up considerably inside dwellings if they're not sufficiently ventilated. And the primary source of indoor radon is air that penetrates inside old and new houses or buildings through cracks or openings in the basement or the ground floor, through gaps around pipes, and through floor drains. Other sources of indoor radon exist, such as underground water. Some building materials that contain radium and natural gas used in homes and buildings can also be sources of very small amounts of radon in the home. We tend to find radon in the lowest level, indoors of the house or building. The concentrations of indoor radon depend on several parameters, such as the uranium and radium contents in the soil and rocks in the region, the way the foundation of the house or building was sealed during its construction, the rate of ventilation in the home, and the location inside the house that people tend to live in. Higher concentrations of radon are found in basement and ground floors, typically. So in terms of how long it remains inside, although the radon decreases quite quickly because it has a relatively short half-life of 3.8 days, it's constantly infiltrating houses and buildings, and so that compensates for the fact that it's decaying away. So radon is permanently present inside dwellings. It's just the levels at which it's there can vary from home to home. When radon and its progeny are inhaled, radon's rapidly exhaled because it's chemically inert gas, while radon progeny remain lodged inside the lungs because they are in solid form. The radon progeny continuously deposit alpha energy in the lung tissue, thus considerably affecting the lungs. Internal alpha radiation is a known carcinogen. And then, so what's that happening on a smaller level? The energy deposited by alpha radiation can possibly damage the DNA strands in the lung cells. Our bodies have mechanisms to repair this damage, but these sometimes do not do this correctly. If DNA is damaged in a certain way, the modified cells start to proliferate, forming tumors. A malignant tumor is one that will invade other tissues than where it was originally formed, also known as cancer. The radon progeny are the main risk of lung cancer, which has the potential to spread to other parts of the body. In terms of how hazardous they are compared to other types of radiation, some radon daughters like polonium-210, polonium-214, and polonium-218 emit alpha particles. Alpha emitters deposit large amounts of radiation energy in a concentrated area of soft tissue. The ICRP, referenced in this slide, is an independent international organization that advances for public benefit the science of radiological protection, in particular by providing recommendations and guidance on all aspects of protection against ionizing radiation. Radiation weighting factors give an indication of how biologically damaging a type of radiation is compared to others. When present inside the body, alpha emitters are 20 times more hazardous than gamma photons, X-rays, and beta radiation, with a radiation weighting factor comparable to some of the most damaging neutron radiation. Radon and its progeny are the second leading cause of lung cancer in Canada after smoking. If you want more information about alpha and beta and these types of radiation that we're talking about, that there are webinars from our past series that have more details and more details on the health effects. So in terms of how hazardous continued, in order to really understand the rest of the presentation, we have to look at how radiation is measured, and the activity of a radioactive source is an indication of how much strength, like how often it is decaying. It's measured in becquerel, and 1 becquerel is 1 radioactive decay per second. The concentration of radon gas is measured in becquerel per cubic meter of air. In small concentrations, below a few tens to 100 becquerel per meter cube, the risk from radon progeny is extremely low. The risk of cancer is proportional to the concentration of radon progeny and also increases with the time spent. So at this time, that's an overview of radon and what it is and why we're concerned about it. So we'd like to invite Pam Workington from KARST and the CNRPP here. And Pam, you have your screen already up. Could you explain to us how KARST fits into the national radiation protection landscape?
Certainly. So KARST is the National Association in Canada, a Canadian Association of Radon Scientists and Technologists. And we were founded 10 years ago to bring stakeholders together to be able to work towards raising awareness on radon. And so we're open, a membership organization that's open to anybody who has an interest in raising awareness on radon. And through KARST, we work with Health Canada on several projects, but on the certification program. So we co-founded the CNRPP, which is Canada's national certification program. And so KARST oversees the certification program with consultation from Health Canada.
Okay, and what's Health Canada's role in terms of monitoring radon here in Canada?
Yeah, so Health Canada provides guidance for Canada. They are the organization that has set our guideline and also have developed standards for measurement through their national radon program. And so they continue to provide expertise on radon standards and build awareness across the country.
Okay, thanks. So we went over the basics of what radon is and that it's the second leading cause of lung cancer in Canada. Do you think the average person in Canada actually realizes that this is an issue?
Nope, we still certainly are struggling against a lack of awareness across Canada. And in fact, in 2018, according to a public opinion poll done, still 35% of the people had no idea of what radon was. So we're still garnering awareness across the country, even though 3,000 people a year are dying. So it's a significant health risk. And we certainly do pay attention to things, you know, this a greater factor than a lot of other things that we look at in our life and try and limit exposure to. So I think it is something that more Canadians need to pay attention to.
Okay. So Rashid, Dr. Zatouni, you've worked in radiation protection for your entire career. And I know
Yes.
one of your concerns is always how children are affected by exposure to radiation. Do you mind speaking just to children and radiation in general and then radon in particular?
Yes. The concerns about the exposure of children is basically in all applications, dental x-rays, radiology, nuclear medicine. So they already get some radiation from medicine. With respect to radon, because children are young and developing, their cells are developing, and if these cells are affected by radiation, they will be modified and they will multiply as modified cells and that's something we really don't want. So if the radon concentrations are quite high, and because of the lifespan of the children, that could lead to some abnormalities, some health effects in the long run. So we do have to protect children against high exposure to radon.
And in terms of the ICRP, we'd mentioned them before. So what type of advice are they giving people? Is it specific to children or is it just for whole populations?
Well, ICRP advises for all people. They do not have specific limits or specific standards for children, but they point out that children have a longer lifespan than adults, and because up to age 18, 21, they are still developing. It is important that the radon concentrations in places where children live have to be low.
Okay, thank you. So Pam, so now that we know like this is a risk and it's in our homes, your organization I know has a great deal of information on testing and mitigation. So first, do you mind telling people how do you find out you have radon in your home? Because we can't see it or taste it or anything like that.
Yeah, so testing for radon is simple. Fortunately, there are a number of test devices available. So our recommendation is to test for a long term, which is 91 days or more during the heating season. And you simply can purchase a test kit. So we do have a list of online retailers on the Take Action on Radon website. And then you would put the test in your home for the minimum of 3 months or 91 days. And then after that time period, you can package it up and send it back to the lab for analysis. And the lab will provide you with a report. And from that report, you can make a determination based on Health Canada's recommendations on whether you should be reducing the radon levels in your home.
So why is it better to do the test in the winter?
So the recommendations are based on research that we historically have seen higher levels in the winter. And we know that this is a logical conclusion based on the idea that in Canada, we often open our windows in the summertime. And so that would allow a lot of fresh air to come in and help with ventilating the air and reducing radon levels inside the home. It's also logical based on the way that our homes work. So radon comes in to our homes through the difference of pressure. So in the winter time, when the ground pressure is cold and the inside air pressure is warm, or the inside air is warm, the pressure is lower inside the home than it is beneath the home. So it tends to draw more radon in. It is, as we see that more homes are using air conditioning and are staying closed, it is possible that we'll see more homes have higher levels during the summer as well. And there are some individual homes that even have this reverse, so they may have higher levels in the summer than in the winter. But in general, our guidance is to test during the winter because that's what the majority of population is going to see. And if you do have high levels in the winter, then we want to make sure that you're paying attention and reducing that.
So in terms of with the test, if your neighbor tested and they're fine, do you still need to test your own house?
Yeah, radon levels can vary house to house, even on the same street or even of the same house construction. The reason is because of this change of air pressures. So depending on how you use your home and the amount of air that you're drawing in, it can change. It's also due to the source. So it may be that just the radon source under your home is different than your neighbor's. So every home needs to test.
Okay, thanks. So now if people are testing, how do they know when they get that report back, whether or not those numbers are good or bad, or like what are the people looking for in that test report?
Yeah, Health Canada has provided us with some guidance. Their guidance level is 200 becquerels per meter cube. And so they encourage all Canadians that have tested and have levels above that to reduce their level. And you can still reduce it below. So radon is a linear risk, so it doesn't mean that 199 is safe. You may want to consider reducing it even below the 200 becquerel level. But they provide guidance on urgency. So if your radon report is between 2 and 600, their recommendation is that you fix it within 2 years. So sort of put that 2-year mark on the calendar so that you can fix it by then. And if your radon level is above 600, that you would fix it within the 1-year period.
So when you're saying fix it, so what does that look like? How does a homeowner do this?
Yeah, so we do have some concrete methods to help with reducing radon. And as you can see on your screen, it's a really simple system of pipe with a fan attached to it. And the purpose of it is to draw the air from beneath the slab of the building or of the home and provide a pathway so that it is discharged outside. So it really prevents the radon gas or the soil gases from coming into the home. And it's a simple and easy to maintain, but it's really important that it's installed properly. And so we do recommend that you look for a CNRPP mitigation professional to install it. And the key is that they will test the location and make sure that the location that they've installed it is going to be efficient to remove the radon from the entire footprint of the home. And also to ensure that the fan is the right size. So they'll go in and they'll do some sealing of the foundation to ensure that there is no draw of air down from the conditioned air down into the subslab space, and also to make sure that it's a more efficient system. And they'll also ensure that where the air gets discharged, so the discharge pipe on the exterior of the home, that it is properly clear. There's clearance from other objects that may draw the air in. So we do have research that shows that the air dissipates to quite low levels, even at a short distance from this discharge point, but we're still cautious and make sure that there is no risk of it being drawn back into the home. So it needs to be discharged properly. And the research shows that this is really effective at reducing even high levels to quite low levels.
And in terms of a few years ago, I went to the NRC campus where they look at home construction and radon mitigation systems and such. And as part of that meeting, I met some builders, and some of them that they put in radon mitigation possibilities, they kind of rough them in before they even build their homes. So that is something that people could look for as well from their builder.
Yeah, that's right. So radon rough-ins are part of the National Building Code. So most provinces at least have requirements for some measures, including subslab space and a barrier and well-sealed areas between the building and the ground. And then there's also this rough-in pipe. So it's about the first 12 inches or so of this system. And its purpose is just to be the start of the system. So it's not providing any radon control or any radon reduction. It's just there so that it's easier to extend and finish off. So that's in most of our provinces. In the province of British Columbia, the building code is split into two. And so if you're in the region where you're required to put in a radon control measures, it's actually a full passive system or an extended rough-in. So it needs to actually be discharged outside the home instead of stopping within the building space. Okay. Or in Ontario, there's also different requirements depending on the municipality. So there's about 8 different municipalities in Ontario that actually have enacted radon control measures in their building code. But in Ontario, the provincial building code leaves it up to the municipality.
Okay, thanks. And you sent us along a few examples of what that looks like in real life. So do you mind speaking to these?
Sure. So yeah, these are some photos of mitigation systems. So the one on the left is active mitigation system that would be installed in a home with a concrete slab. And the one on the right side would be a crawl space membrane. So you can see that even in an area where there's a dirt floor, we need to create a type of membrane in order to be able to draw. So that you would provide a well-sealed area, and you can see that there's a termination bar that attaches it, as well as it needs to be airtight sealed to the wall. And then there would be the piping system hooked up under the membrane and attached to a fan as well to draw the air out.
So this doesn't look like necessarily a do-it-yourself thing for most people. So if somebody needs to have this done, where can you find a mitigation specialist?
Yeah, so we have a list of certified professionals on our website. You can go to cnrpp.ca and click on the Find a Professional button. And we do have mitigation professionals across the country, so you can put in your postal code and find somebody in your area.
Okay, that's great. So Pam, did your organization partner with anyone else besides Health Canada?
Yeah, we certainly do. Karst is one of the partners right now on the Take Action on Radon project. And so that initiative is funded by Health Canada, but the purpose is really to bring stakeholders together from across the country to raise awareness on radon, as well as to work through for Radon Action Month. So November is Radon Action Month, and that's one of the initiatives, is to promote the fact that November is Radon Action Month as well.
Okay, and that's part of why we have our webinar here. We caught it on the last day of November. So I just, in terms of more information, so all those partners there, their websites would have information about radon and lung cancer. That's correct, Pam? So
Correct,
Take Action
yeah.
on Radon, the Canadian Cancer Society, Carix Canada, and Karst. Health Canada as well. Here at the Institute, that if you were to go back, the webinar I mentioned, our previous webinar, was in April on radon. And again, that was the other format where it's basically information going from me out. And we also have fact sheets. And with by signing up for the webinar, we will send out afterwards documentation with all these links. You don't have to worry about copying it down now. So now we have about 10-12 minutes to open for questions. We have Rashid, we have Pam, we have Kelly. I think Kelly's here somewhere. I'll have to make her a co-host if she isn't already. Oh, there's Kelly there now. So we'll take a look and see if there's any questions in the chat room, and I'll get those copied down. Is there anybody that's willing out in the audience just to vocalize? I have it right now so that I have to make it so that people can make themselves heard. So just one second, I have to change that setting for the participants. So right now, that you guys, the participants, that you're allowed to unmute yourself, introduce yourself. Remember that it's being recorded, so if you'd rather just put your question in the chat room, that's fine as well. But if anybody wants to just come on and say hello to our guests and ask a question, the floor is open.
Hello, my name is Robin Hunt. I'm a radiation safety officer for Imperial Oil. Looking at radon, for example, in Canada, and I know it varies from place to place across Canada, and when you look at a place like Ramsar, Iran, where people are getting 250 millisieverts a year simply because they live there, how does radon compare here to there, and how does their health compare to health in Canada based on radon?
So who would like to field that? Do we have Kelly or Pam?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert on the radiation exposure in Iran, so I can talk to the radon levels in Canada, but I can't answer that question. Kelly, do you have any?
Yeah, no, I can't really answer that question either, other than I can speak to the sort of median range of radon levels in Canada, which is just under 100 becquerels, I think, according to one of Dr. Jing Chen's last papers. But as far as comparing it to other countries and their experience.
I can say something about that.
Okay.
Sure, great.
Thanks, Rashid.
Okay, in that part of Iran, the uranium content of soil is quite high. So it's not only radon, but it's also the external exposure to natural radioactivity from the soil. I don't know if they do anything about radon, but definitely the radon concentrations are certainly higher than our concentrations in Canada. So there are some theories that maybe these people being exposed all their life at high level, they develop a sort of immunity, but that's not possible because with radiation, you just cannot have immunity, as you know, radiation attacks the DNA. And when the DNA is broken, and if the cell remains alive, then it develops as a modified cell and could lead to abnormalities, to tumors, etc. Now, maybe the dose is not high enough to induce, the external dose is not high enough to induce radiation effects in the long term, because we know that everything is probabilistic. Up to 100 millisieverts received in a short time, we have never seen any effects. Above 100 millisieverts, it's probabilistic, and the effects increase with the increasing dose.
So
Uh,
Robin,
yep.
do you mind typing that into the chat so I have the question captured? And I do
Yep.
have some background information, but right now there's not enough time for me to look it up. But I'll include that in the Q&A if you can throw it in there.
Perfect, will do. Okay.
Okay, so we had a question here. What about the radon detectors that couple with your smartphone? Are they as accurate as the test kits that have to be sent to the lab for processing? Kelly, did you want to address that?
Yes, sir. And Pam, I know you can sort of add to it as well. I did actually answer it in the
Oh, okay.
chat,
I did
but
see
I'm
that.
happy to explain that our recommendation is to go with the certified long-term detectors like the AlphaTrack detectors, and they're more cost-effective for Canadians in general as well. Those test kits. That being said, because the digital detectors that are being referred to in this question are not certified. That doesn't mean that they don't work properly. It simply means that they haven't been through a proper certification process. But in 2020, and again in 2021, and Pam can speak to this better than I, there has been some evaluation of digital monitors in Canada that are available in Canada. So there are more and more Canadians that are choosing to purchase digital monitors that are, and so we've also come across some digital monitors that are being sold at a much less expensive price on Amazon, for example, that aren't actually radon monitors and only record low levels. So there's that concern. So if you are considering a digital monitor, we would highly recommend that you take a look at the paper that was published by Karst and CNERP and Pam, I think it was CNERP, but Pam was one of the authors, that speaks to the digital monitors that have been evaluated. So you know you're choosing one that is functional properly, that will function properly.
Thank you, Kelly. So we have time for a couple more questions, and then I will work to get the rest of the answers up so that the people that have asked. So in terms of this, what can be done with radon coming in through floor drains that need to be kept open and available? So Pam, are you able to speak to that?
Yeah, certainly. There is actually a device that was manufactured and invented right in Winnipeg and is used around North America that can be installed in a floor drain. So it allows the water to drain, but it prevents the gas from coming up. And so if a home is connected, the floor drain is connected to the weeping tile system, this can be a useful way of preventing the soil gas from coming up.
Thank you. So we had a question here, respecting 3,000 annual radon-associated fatalities in Canada, do we know the fraction of such fatalities associated with very high exposure levels, perhaps as indicated by a profession like mining? And can we frame the fatalities in terms of exposure levels, and how do they compare with your Health Canada guidelines? Is that data broken down to that granularity or no?
No, it's a population level estimated risk. So no, it's not broken down to that level.
Okay, thanks.
Well,
And
there is research, like Unscared does have some, so it depends on the research paper, but you'd have to collate them all together. So Unscared does have risk assessments of how it increases with the level of risk. So I think it's 16% increase every 100 becquerels per meter cubed.
yeah.
And
but
so,
in terms of correlating the 3,000 deaths in Canada to any particular level, that's not of it. That 3,000 is a population-based estimate.
correct.
absolutely. And you need to remember too that within those 3,000, there's that combination of other factors such as smoking or previous smoking, right?
Yes, and Kelly, do you mind? It's not a question in here, but I'm always trying to encourage people to stop smoking. There is polonium in cigarette smoke, but the heavy metals and other chemicals are actually probably more damaging than the radioactive material you're breathing in. But in terms of the idea of synergy with the cigarette smoking and the radon, can you just explain that a little bit, what you see in terms of smokers versus non-smokers and radon?
Sure. Well, what I can tell you is that based on the epidemiological research that's been done, that the relationship between radon exposure and smoking is more than synergistic, it's submultiplicative.
Right. Okay.
So it significantly increases the risk. And so what we estimate and we have some charts and data on this in some of our materials is that exposure to high radon for someone who doesn't smoke, your risk is about 1 in 20. But if you combine high, and when we say high radon, what we mean is 800 becquerel. So that's how it was estimated. Long-term exposure to high radon and smoking increases your risk to 1 in 3. And if you're just a smoker, your risk is about 1 in 10.
Okay, thanks.
So you can see that significant increase.
Yes, so we have about 4 minutes. I'd like to give 1 minute transition. So we have 3 or 4 minutes. So we'll try to get through a few more questions because I think this is very helpful and we have a really good attendance. So I have a new house and an inspector found radon on the basement with a short time test. How can we enforce, or can you force the builder to take measures to solve the issue? Does anyone have, Pam or Kelly?
So in Ontario, the Terrian warranty does provide coverage for radon, but it's based on a long-term test. So you would need to conduct a long-term test. And then as long as it's within the first 7 years, they will cover it under the warranty program. So either the builder or the warranty program will pay out. This isn't being enforced in any other province. There are some issues though with construction. So if there has been some examples in Alberta where we could point to the fact that there was some specific errors in the way that the building was constructed that would assist in the radon mitigation, but it's not specifically in radon.
Thanks. One thing that I would like to mention, and I think you can find it, Pam can tell me, or Kelly, there's a question, are there any areas of municipalities specific concern for radon in British Columbia? But if we could expand that to the whole country, there is across Canada radon map, right? And it can be found, I think there's a link to it maybe on the CNRPP site. And I assume Health Canada may have it as well.
Yeah, so there is, if you go to canada.ca/radon, you'll see there's a map button and that goes to an interactive map that maps the cross Canada survey data that we've done. The Take Action on Radon team recently came out with a detailed report on their findings based on the 100 Test Kit Challenge. It's a citizen science community testing program that they've had in place for 3 years. Quebec recently released their data, Quebec Lung Association, and with a functionality on their website where you can type in your postal code and get an estimate of the risk in your area. And then the BC CDC recently announced their radon data repository. And I believe they have an interactive map as well, right? I just attended the presentation. I should keep it all straight, but it's amazing all of the progress that's going on. And maybe Pam, I can't remember with the BC CDC if you can actually input your postal code as well.
No, that one you need to apply. So their mapping data is for researchers. So you would need to complete a form to be able to get access to their radon data.
Yeah. And I answered that question. I do want to say one thing, even if I told you, you live in a very low risk area, we didn't find any parts of the country outside of Nunavut where there was no radon. So
that was the next
the
point.
only way to know is to test, really.
You still have to test, right?
You have to test, yeah.
You have to test. You cannot see, you cannot tell. So even if the soil, in one house to the next, it could be different. So with that, we're to the end of our 40 minutes. It went by really quickly, and I do appreciate everyone being here. While we have Kelly and Pam here, can I just leave you with a moment to, if you had one message for our people that are here today, what would that one message be? So Pam, what would you encourage, or what would you tell people about radon?
I would encourage all you to talk with your friends and family about it and encourage them to test and reduce their radon.
And Kelly?
I would tell you that the risk from long-term exposure to radon is equivalent to all accidental deaths. And we have lots of tables and charts on this in our materials. So if you change the batteries in your smoke detector, if you put a life jacket on your child when you go on a boat, if you put your seatbelt on when you get in the car, why are you not testing your home for radon?
Thank you, Kelly. And with that, we will go through, make sure your questions, if you have further questions for us, and hopefully Pam and Kelly might help me if I can't find the answers as well afterwards, and I'll work on that and have it up either today or tomorrow or the next day. The video needs to be processed. So we're going to end this portion, and we'd like to welcome Teresa Meikle, who is here. We're not just talking about this, the first portion is about our physical wellness. And again, with COVID, a lot of us are under new stresses that we've never experienced before. And we're bringing Teresa in as our expert on mindfulness. And she's going to lead us through an example session and just explain, do a little bit of background information on what mindfulness is and how helpful it can be. So I'm going to turn it over to Teresa. And again, thank you so much for Pam and Kelly, and for Rashid here at the Institute. I don't want to forget him. So thank you, Rashid.
Hi, everyone. Hi, and welcome. This was really interesting to listen to. Lynn, if you can help me to share my screen, that would be great.
Yeah, I think I moved it over to your co-host. It should be. I'm just going to put this last slide up. Just as Teresa's getting ready there, just know that we have a 1-800 number. You can always give us a call for any questions on ionizing or non-ionizing radiation, and there's lots of resources on our website. So I'm going to turn over. I'm going to participate on screen with Teresa. People can turn off their video if they wish, or they can participate on screen as well.
Okay, hi. So welcome, everybody, and thank you for being here. If you could just let me know if you can see the screen and my slides, that'd be great.
Yes, yeah, it's just not in presentation mode. Now it's perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm going to mute.
Okay, thanks. So welcome, everyone. And I was just listening in at the last minute there, and I thought what Kelly said about, you know, preparing for things that could happen, like putting on our seatbelt when we get in the car. I think this is nicely connected to the role that mindfulness can play in our lives. So just before we go too far, I'm going to introduce you to a mindfulness exercise that's going to be about 20 seconds in length. You're going to hear a sound, and I'd like you to listen to the sound until you can no longer hear it. So that's our first mindfulness practice. That's a way of practicing a pause. If you're looking at the screen, you can see a focus for today is really noticing that most of us are caught up in all kinds of things that we're thinking about, worrying about, and we're really missing a lot of what's happening in this moment in our lives right now. So our intention today is just to share with you a little bit of research, some practice, and some things that you can take away and investigate on your own and in your own time. So looking at the slides right now, I wonder if you could just have a look at these questions as I read them through. and just think about them. Have you ever lost yourself scrolling aimlessly? So opening up your phone and then noticing that you were on your phone for half an hour. Have you ever missed half of what your partner, child, friend, boss was saying? Watched a TV show, couldn't remember the plot. Driven to work and been surprised you actually arrived and not having seen anything along the way. Been present in body, but not in mind. So if any of this is true for you, could you just put a little thumbs up on the screen? Or you could put it in the chat. You could say yes in the chat. Whatever works for you.
Yeah, if you use the reactions section, that's where you get your thumbs up.
Okay. Thank you. And you may be hearing something really odd right now. And I have to tell you that this is how we prepare for real world activity, in that I'm dog sitting, and my sister's dog has decided that now would be a really good time to cry and to bark. So coming back to the video, you may hear him in the background, and I apologize for that. But this is the way life is, right? Things happen to us that are sometimes outside of our control. I can't manage when the dog will bark or climb into the bathtub, which he did earlier. In the same way that if a driver in front of me stops suddenly, there's a case of alarm, right? So if I'm attentive, if I'm really present in my body and paying attention to driving and not caught up in the stories in my head, I have the opportunity to respond wisely to that moment. This is the benefit of mindfulness. This is the major benefit, that we are actually in our lives as we live it. Oh, I just wanted to mention that little, I love this image on the side with the sloth and the reminder to slow our scroll. And I think it speaks to everything that we're doing. Can we stop and really consider what we're doing? And if we're intentional and mindful about it, or it's just a habit that we're reinforcing. Because every time we practice a habit, whether it's a good one or one that's not so healthy, we're reinforcing that habit in our brain, right? And I'm sure many of you know about neuroplasticity, and that the ability to shape our brains and to help our brains to help us to live well, right? So what we practice is what we become. I've given you a couple of links here to some work from Mind Owl, which is a really interesting organization. And if you're on Instagram, you can follow them for a little bit of quick inspiration and mindfulness practice. And if you'd like to know more, they have a blog. And so I've highlighted a couple of blogs that talk to us about the difference between mindfulness and meditation. So meditation is a formal practice, and mindfulness is what we do when we're actually present for our lives as we live them. So that when I'm at the grocery store and I'm lining up and I start to notice that I'm getting a little agitated with the person in front of me because they're looking for something in their wallet, or they're taking a long time, or they can't find the price, or there's some kind of conflict, I can have a sense that in my body, I'm feeling agitated, right? Might have some tightness in my chest. I might feel some heat in my face. So having an awareness of those sensations can help me to recognize my impatience, and it gives me a choice right? And the choice can be to act wisely. That is to take a few breaths, to settle the nervous system, and just recognize that some things are not in my control. I can't control that person in front of me. I can't control how quickly we're getting through the grocery aisle. But I can accept it just as it is, and I can choose to be patient and to be kind, and to be kind to myself, which in fact ripples out into what happens next. So that's one of the benefits of mindfulness. I'm going to share a little bit on this research. So I've given you the link for this article. This research took place quite some time ago and had, I think, over 2,000 participants. And really what they found, the bottom line is that many of us are not actually present in our minds in this moment. So many of us are lost in what happened before or what might happen next. So if I left my house in a hurry this morning and I had a little disagreement with my child on the way out the door, but now I'm at work, I'm still thinking about that disagreement with my child, or the fact that my child might have forgotten their lunch, or whatever it is. So I'm not present for the meeting that I'm in right now. So I'm missing the meeting and I can't do anything about what happened with my child right now in this moment. Right? So I can, with mindfulness, I can notice that I'm lost in the past and I can bring myself back to the present moment. The other thing that this research found out was that people are also lost in the predictions about the future. So I'm in the meeting or wherever I am, and I'm thinking about, oh, I have to get my child to music lessons or dance lessons, or I have to go and visit my mother after work and it might snow or it might rain, or yep, it might, but you don't have a lot of control over whether or not it's going to snow or rain or whatever it's going to be. So the best you can do is to come back to the moment that you're currently in. The really important part of this is that when we're lost in the past or fearful about the future, we can't enjoy the moment that we're in. And that this study showed that this wandering mind, this mind that is not in the present, really leads to unhappiness, discontent, and it can spiral into feelings of exhaustion and depression, right? So choosing to be here in this moment, even if it's difficult, is actually a healthier choice than trying to avoid what's present or numb ourselves because we don't want to be with what's present. So there's lots of ways in which we try to manage stress through numbing. Maybe that's Netflix and, also Netflix and also scrolling on our phone and missing the opportunity to actually engage with the people that we might live with, or follow up on some research that we wanted to do, or some reading, or something that would be more in line with the person we're becoming or our best selves. So just as I move off this slide, one of the most famous books on mindfulness is this book here, Full Catastrophe Living, by John Kabat-Zinn. And he is really the person who brought these ancient practices to the West from the East. So they have foundations in Buddhism and other traditions as well. But what I'm talking about today is this secular practice of mindfulness. So although, meditation has a sacred practice, and continues to do so, a secular practice can be practiced by anyone, regardless of your faith or not having a faith. So it is a lot of work is being done in the science of mindfulness and how it impacts our brain and our response and our actual ability to flourish in the moment. So this is the definition that many people use. Mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. The non-judgmentally is the part that that can be very, very difficult to manage. And we have to be kind with ourselves as beginning meditators or mindfulness people. So let's do a couple of practices. We have very little time. So one practice is just, having a sense of yourself in this present moment. So I'm going to lead you through a practice called the 3-minute breathing space. I've given you a link to it. It's led by Mark Williams. The link that I've given you is led by Mark Williams, who's a professor at the Oxford Mindfulness Center at Oxford University. This is a key practice for people who are taking the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy program. And it's a practice that you can do in a more formal way. And it's a practice that you can do on the Go train. Nobody needs to know what you're doing. You don't need to sit in any special way. It's just a moment of centering. So let's take this time now just to drop into the moment. If you're comfortable with closing your eyes, go ahead and do that. If that's not comfortable for you, that's perfectly fine. Just drop them away from the screen. There's nothing to see. I'm not doing anything interesting. Just try to listen and follow the guidance as best you can. So if your eyes are closed here, great. If not, just steadiness. And the sense of your feet on your floor, your body in the chair. Maybe noticing where your shoulders are. Also a sense of the spine being upright but not stiff. And here we're just checking in with the weather. So what's the weather in your thoughts right now? What thoughts are here? And the invitation is just to notice whatever thoughts are here. And just notice that they might pass off. They might pass through. And then noticing any emotions. Whether pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, it's okay. Not trying to get rid of them. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're being with. We're having an awareness. And then noticing any sensations in the body. It might be warmth or tingling. Might be restlessness because you've been listening to the webinar. And the second step of the breathing space is just to take that spotlight of attention into the breath. And following the breath all the way in. Notice that it turns around. And following it out. And if following the breath isn't comfortable for you, you can always just bring your attention to maybe the weight of your hands on your thighs. And let that be an anchor. And then the third step is to bring attention to the whole body, the breath, the feet, seat, shoulders. And then moving it outward into the environment that you're currently in. And being rudely awakened by that alarm, letting us know that we've come to the end of our time. So I'd like to take a few moments here, if we can, to take any questions. I'm sharing with you the benefits of mindfulness. I've given you a link to all of the research based on this. This is based on an outstanding book called Mindfulness: Finding Peace in a Frantic World, which is an 8-week program, also written by professors of Oxford Mindfulness Center and University of Toronto. And then finally on this slide, I've given you a link to my website and resources and some additional resources that are all free with meditations.
Thank you so much, Teresa. When I send out the resources, that those will be included and they'll be put up on our website. So if anyone, I know some people have to get back to work because it's over the lunch hour, but we do have a number of people still here. If anyone wants to unmute and ask Teresa a question or just make comments, that's fine, or you can type in the chat room. Oh, we have a quiet bunch.
We do, that's fine, that's fine.
Okay.
It's a bit of a rush, but hopefully a good introduction. And thank you for saying I have a relaxing voice. I appreciate that.
I've gotten to hear Teresa. Actually, she's a great orator and was a wonderful English teacher. And I've worked with Teresa in the past. And we did enjoy listening to her read for everyone. It is a gift.
Well, thank you. I hope that you will check out some of those resources, have a look at the research. The most important thing in mindfulness is to give it a practice and see what you make of it on your own, and also to be very kind to yourself.
All right. Well, thank you, Teresa. I'm going to remain on just to make sure that I have everything captured out of the chat room. And I do thank everyone for attending. We had great turnout, and thanks again. We'll have more coming up in the future, and hopefully Teresa might be able to join us for some in the future as well.
You have a couple of questions, Lynn, but I guess you have to wrap up for today.
Yeah, we have to wrap it up. I'm going to take them and we're going to type out the answers and make a Q&A document for everything that's left over. So that's
Good.
great. And again, our recording will be put up. It takes a while to process it and stuff. Things will be up tomorrow or the following day, depending on how things go. But thanks so much, Teresa. And thanks to our guests that were here, Pam and Kelly and Dr. Zatuni.
Thank you very much.
See you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Check out all our webinars at https://radiationsafety.ca/services/webinars.